Hey everyone. What do you think about that little girl? I love this little girl. And by the way, this painting is by a Haitian artist called Karel Blin. I love her. She's so cute. Anyway, I digress. That's not why I'm here, but she is cute, right? Look at her. Look at her. Beautiful little girl. Anyway, when I was little, maybe that's why I wanted to show her to you when I was little. All right. When I was a kid, my grandmother used to say, if you have a secret that is itching you, that you need something that you just need to spill the beans and tell somebody, open your legs and talk to the kitty. Now I know a lot of you are thinking, wow, that's vulgar, but that's a lot less vulgar than telling a really good friend or somebody really close to you a secret and then having them betray you, having them use that information against you, having them destiny swap with you. And you know, we've been talking about diarrhea of the mouth. So we're going to keep talking about it. This is part 3. And in this part of part 3, I have a few concepts that I want to discuss with you because these are concepts that I want you to take in. These concepts that we're going to discuss today are really important for us to continue on this conversation. So we're going to get right into that. I want you to take these concepts, consider what they mean. We're going to talk about core concepts. We're going to talk about your core values. We're going to talk about the 10 commandments. We're not here for religion, but there's a reason that we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about institutions, indoctrination, and standards, right? And how this all affects how this all affects us, how we see life, why we need to see life through our own lens, and why when we tell other people, when we share things with other people, it's not always conscious, it's sometimes subconscious because they have their own values. And I think everyone, there's the 10 commandments, which are law, right? Core values, which are yours. You may have some core values that are the same as people that you grew up with, but not everyone values the same things. And we're going to get deeper into that. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. Get something to drink. Because we're moving into my office. Get something to drink. Get comfy, right? Sit on your couch and let's get into this because I want you to really think deeply about these concepts because in part 4, we're going to get more into how these concepts affect destiny swapping. All right, let's go. Let's go. May my grandma rest in peace, let me tell you, because I finally get what she was saying with that statement. I believe that we're all here to decide our own, what standards are for us, right? And I believe that institutions have standards that they pass on. Your household has standards that they pass on to you. When you go to church, you have standards that are passed on to you. What the church thinks is acceptable. And then the other thing is, what are the values of the church? What are the values of your household? Every institution that you belong to has different values and standards. If you go look at a college that you went to and you look at their mission statement, you're going to see what their core values are. Do you even bother to look at the school's mission statement? Because it's really important. Because if that school's values don't align with your own personal values, you can find yourself in conflict at that school. Simple. All right. So, but I believe that we all have to decide our own way of life, how we want to live this life, what works for us. And then we need to find the people that align with us, right? And we keep hearing that, hey, sometimes it's not the people that we grew up with that align with us. And it's like, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean? I grew up with these people. Like, we should have the same values. But you will see right away as we go through, it's not true. All right. So first we have the 10 Commandments, and you can see them. It should be here. And that tells us right from wrong. Like the 10 Commandments, to me, literally give you like 10 rules, 10 basic rules, 10 basic major rules that you should live by and that everyone should live by. If we live by these rules, right? What are the 10 Commandments? I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt not have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor thy father, thy mother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. And thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. So we're going to be focused more on the last 5, like from 5 to 10. Number 10 is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods, and thou shalt not steal. And we've been talking about destiny swapping, which generally comes from coveting thy neighbor, sister, brother, mother, whatever, child, and then stealing from them, right? Because we've been talking about stealing people's ideas and taking things from people and then not giving them credit. So we're not talking about just looking at what someone does and really having admiration for what they've done, right? And saying, oh my gosh, I would really love to do that too. No, I'm talking about going in, seeing what they're doing. You don't want to give them credit. And then now you want to take it for yourself because you think that you deserve it more than they do. So anyhow, let's continue. So the 10 Commandments for me, drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. If we live by these rules, listen, if we live by those rules, what would be the problem, right? Well, the problem becomes when now you have standards. And let me read you what is a standard, right? You're like, okay, well, what is a standard? What's the difference? Shouldn't your standards align with these 10 Commandments, right? All right, because those 10 Commandments seem pretty much a good way for living. Right? They give you a good guideline for how to live your life, for how everyone should live their life, whether you're religious or not. So, because we're not talking about religion here. Standards are man-made. Standards in general are a basis for comparison and judgment. Remember that. Having a standard is how we pass judgment on others. See? Because when people don't align with our standards, we can judge them and make them good, bad, indifferent, right? And so the actual meaning is something established by authority, custom, or general consent that serves as a model, example, rule, or criterion against which other things are measured or evaluated or compared. So when your family, an institution, has a standard, you are now judged based on that standard.
Capiche? Capiche, okay?
So you can see where your family, you grew up in a household, your family has a standard, and you're measured by that standard. Now, I want you to stop and think as we go through these, like I mentioned, what are some standards? What are some examples or rules, customs, general consent rules that your family, any institution you belong to, your school, your job, your friendship group, have that you are not aligned with and which ones you're aligned with? I'm going to give you some examples of like household and religious standards, okay? Let's say your family has family gatherings for church services. That's a standard. Daily or weekly prayer, right? And so That's a standard. Dietary restrictions. Some faiths don't allow certain foods. So some eat kosher foods. That's not a law. That's a standard. They don't eat kosher food. So they have dietary restrictions. Some have fasting incorporated in. Most religions do at certain times. That's a standard. It's like Catholics have during Lent. You have 40 days of fasting, right? That's a standard. And you're judged by that standard. These are things that you're judged by. Your dress code. Certain religion prescribes certain clothing, certain households, certain cultures do not allow certain types of clothing to be worn. That is a standard. Traditions like meals and traditions, like, if you go to a Southern household and you go to, if you go to someone from the South or if you go to someone from the North, what you might find on a Thanksgiving table or a holiday table is different. Those are standards. What does respect and communication look like? That's a standard, because some cultures will emphasize respect for elders. Some emphasize open communications. What does that look like in your household? What does conflict resolution look like in your household? And then these standards are based on a moral compass, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. Let's move to moral compass. Listen, this is all going to make sense at the end, because I want you to start, as you're stepping into your authenticity, I want you to start thinking about how you feel about the 10 Commandments, how you feel, where your standards are, where the standards of the people around you are, and where's your moral compass. And what is a moral compass? We're going to define it, right? We all think we know what morals are, but we know we define morals based on standards. Definition of a moral compass is a metaphorical term used to describe an individual's internal sense of right and wrong and the set of guiding principles or values that inform their ethical decision, judgments, and behavior. Think of it as a literal compass that points north, helping a traveler navigate. A moral compass similarly points towards what an individual believes is right or good, is a right or good path in life, especially when faced with dilemmas and choices. So, key characteristics of a moral compass. You want to write these down, because you want to see where you are in your moral compass and where the people around you are. If you're having conflict with the people around you, most of the time, it's going to be around the moral compass. Personal beliefs and values. It's built upon a foundation of core beliefs of what is good, bad, just, unjust, kind, cruel, honest, dishonest, etc. These values are deeply personal and can include things like honesty, integrity, respect, empathy, fairness, loyalty, accountability, kindness, and selflessness. Now, I'm going to stop there, because if you are somebody who's empathetic, right, and you value empathy is part of your moral compass, and the people around you that you surround yourself with do not have empathy. Do you think you're going to clash with them? Oh, yes, my dear, you are. If you believe in accountability, so something happens and maybe you feel like you were wrong, or you feel you were wrong or you were wronged, you will take accountability, because you have a moral compass that says, I take accountability for the things that I do, and what good or bad, right? But you may have someone that whatever they do, whether or not they did something to you, they don't take accountability. They project the accountability is always onto someone else. So they never take accountability. Do you understand where you start to have a clash with people? So, selflessness. Now, this one is really interesting, because it's one that's like empathy, right? Because people who are truly empaths tend to be viewed as selfless, right? And not everyone is selfless. And how far everyone can be somewhat selfless, but to what degree are you selfless? To what degree do you give? Because selflessness is like you're constantly giving of yourself, right? You're overgiving, oversharing, overfunctioning. Is it starting to click for you now? Right? Because these are your core values. You know, when you're oversharing, overgiving, a lot of times you have been given standards that say that you should be selfless. You should be empathetic towards others, even when they aren't towards you. Do you see why things start to get a little strange in your relationships? Do you understand why things get strained? So you could grow up in the same household with someone where you believe in fairness, accountability, and empathy, and the other person believes that they should just have their way and they're never wrong. They don't take accountability. Whatever it is that they do, that it's always your fault. It's somebody else's fault. They never did anything. They never do anything wrong. And so now with your moral compass, you're just like, wait a minute, like you don't take accountability for anything that you do. And telling them to take accountability, if that's not part of their moral compass, how are you going to change that? You're not going to change that. But you can see with some of these things, the honesty, integrity, respect, empathy, fairness, loyalty, accountability, kindness, and selflessness. If you're overgiving and oversharing, how many of those do you have? I want you to write them down, and I want you to take note of the people around you and see how many of the people around you have this. If this is your moral compass, if these things are important to you, you most likely just assume like those around you have the same moral compass, and that gets you in trouble. Because respect, for one, right? What does respect mean to you? Maybe respect means that you share something with someone and they don't repeat it. And then, you know what? Like it's a secret, right? We talked about secrets at the beginning. It's a secret. It's between you and them. It's private, let's say. And the next thing you know, like they've told someone else. Do you feel disrespected? Does that make you feel disrespected? Now, if that person also has now disrespected you and they don't believe in accountability, and you go to them and you say, hey, like I said this to you in confidence and you repeated it, and they say, oh, it wasn't a big deal. Like, you know, it was just, I just told like so-and-so, like, you know, it's no big deal. I can't believe they came back and told you that. But they were the ones who went and told the person. So now they don't take accountability. So I want you to start taking notes of the people around you. Okay? And you have to understand what you value. And the other part is that if the things that you value, you have to stand by it and you have to live by it. Because that's how you're going to find the people around you who also have the same values. All right. So anyway, next, guiding principles. These values coalesce into principles that act as rules or guidelines for behavior. For example, if honesty is a core value, a principle might be, I will always tell the truth even if it's difficult. And again, if that is your core value is honesty, and your principle is that I'll always tell the truth, even if it's difficult. If you have someone around you who's constantly not telling the truth, why is that person in your energy? Because that's your value. If you have a family member who is not telling the truth, why are they allowed in your energy, and why are you sharing everything with them? They don't believe in telling the truth. So this is why discernment is so important, because it's not because you grow up in a household with someone that they have the same values, the same moral compass as you, and the same principles as you. And you just need to be honest with yourself to see where your values and your principles don't align with your moral compass. Where you're not aligning. Because if you have a moral compass and you say that you are honest, but then you're telling white lies, then you're misaligned with your own moral compass. We need to align with our moral compass. And I'm not saying that this never happens. This does happen, right? Because we have other people that are telling white lies, and we just think like that's the way it's done because it's tradition. It's the standard. It's okay, right? But does that standard align with your moral compass, your values, and your principles? This is, as you step in your authenticity, you have to make sure all those things are aligned. So next is the internal navigation system. It helps individuals navigate complex social situations, make choices, and react to events in ways that is consistent with their internal sense of what is morally acceptable. Okay. So this also causes conflict because now, right, your reaction to events in a way that are consistent with your internal sense of what is morally acceptable will rub people the wrong way. Okay. One more thing about your moral compass is that while your core values might remain stable, right? It doesn't have to. Your values can change because moral compass is not fixed. It can be shaped and refined by upbringing, family, community, religious influences, which play a significant role in early moral development. Life experiences, new experiences, challenges, successes, and failures can lead to reflection and a re-evaluation of your values. As those things change, you evolve. Your education and your knowledge, learning about different ethical frameworks, cultures, and perspectives can broaden and refine our moral understanding, right? And so this is why when you have people around you, family members, friends, right? As you're evolving and you're educating yourself and how you don't necessarily get the same education that your brother has, that your sister has, that your parents had, that your cousins have, that your friends have. And so your moral compass starts to shift. And as it does, this causes frustration for the people around you if they are not aligned with this moral compass. If they don't have the education that you have, it's not good or bad. It's just like it's education and knowledge. Different ethical frameworks, like I said, different cultures. If I've been exposed to, if I'm Catholic and I've been exposed to Islamic culture, I may have a different moral compass based on what I've learned through that culture. But see, a lot of people and institutions like to remain in a bubble, so to speak. And then it doesn't evolve, or the people don't evolve, let's say. The structure doesn't evolve, the institution doesn't evolve, and you're indoctrinated into into values and a moral compass that may no longer align with you. I hope this is making sense. If not, if you have any questions and something that you'd like to expand on that we can talk more about, let me know. Now, next is life experiences, education, and then self-reflection. Consciously examining your beliefs, right? Some people never do this. Some people around you will never re-examine their beliefs. They just have one belief and that's it. And it remains. But if you're someone who is consciously examining your beliefs and action to help strengthen and calibrate the moral compass, you may find that you have conflict with those around you because you no longer align with their moral compass. They no longer align with your moral compass. And I'm not going to call it good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just going to say it's not aligned. So you have to find people that you are aligned with. You have to be true to your moral compass. You have to understand why your moral compass is changing, why your values are changing, why the principles that you have are changing. And you need to stand firm in those. Why is moral compass so important? It provides a framework for making choices, especially in situations where things aren't clear. So here's an example. So 10 Commandments says, thou shalt not kill. Code of conduct says in certain states that we have the death penalty. Where are you in your moral compass on this? So it's not about, like, obviously that law does not align with the 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not kill. But it aligns with another rule in the book that says an eye for an eye, right? So you're going to take that as you will. But based on your education, based on the cultures that you've been exposed to, you are going to have different values, beliefs, and principles around this that may not align with those around you. So when you say, you know what, maybe you'll say, I don't believe that we should be executing anyone no matter what they've done. But in that institution where you are around, like that's the law. That's what it is. When you start having issues is when you start abandoning your moral compass so that you can align with the standards that others are putting into place. When you can align, so that you align with the moral compass of those around you. Even though you're an individual, a collective understanding and adherence to moral principles are crucial for the functioning and well-being of societies, right? Because there needs to be some type of social cohesion. And then your sense of purpose is tied to your moral compass, right? Because if you don't believe in empathy, you're probably not going to be a nurse in the medical field. There are certain fields that require a level of empathy. And you can be a nurse without having empathy. You can be a doctor without having empathy, but that's going to be apparent. So as a patient going in to see a nurse or seeing a doctor, having a doctor, we need to be able to discern whether or not that doctor does have empathy, if that's what you're looking for in a physician. Things that you do in life, your purpose in life is going to be tied to your moral compass, to your values, to the principles that you believe in. It's definitely tied to that. We need to understand that we're not perfect. As humans, I'm not perfect. The person is not perfect. That people that we deal with are not perfect. And so if you live in an institution that just blanketly says to you that because someone is older than you, that you should value them as perfect and that you should not question their opinion, how can you discern? And in the next video also, because I'm going to talk to you about Selena the artist, who was not the young one, but the old one, the one who was unalived by her social media manager, who was older than her and was a good friend of the family. When you are not aware of where the moral compass is of the people around you, you will find yourself in precarious situations. When people will come in, they will take from you. They will interrupt your destiny. Her destiny was interrupted. I'm not trying to be religious here. I'm just trying to show you that all these things, right, that we don't really give any thought to. All these things I just talked about, the 10 commandments, the moral compass, the standards, the values, your ethics. The fact that moral compass is not static, it changes based on education. When you start to realize this, you realize why you're not aligned with people around you sometimes, why you've evolved, and why it's important to stay true to your moral compass, because you can feel aligning to somebody else's moral compass that doesn't align with yours, to somebody else's values that doesn't, trying to do that, you can only do that for so long, right? And I call that dimming your light, because like I said, your moral compass is aligned with your destiny in life, with your purpose. Your purpose is part of your destiny. When you allow someone to come in and play with your moral compass and tell you that your moral compass and your principles are not right, and that it should remain as the status quo, that this is the way the institution does things, because this is how your destiny's stolen from you. Because if your moral compass is tied to your purpose in life, and you are developing your moral compass based on what somebody else says and not based on your education, your personal beliefs, your guiding principles, your internal navigation system, and the dynamic of evolution that happens as you navigate through this life. Your life experiences, your upbringing is part of it, but it's not all of it. And when someone tells you that your upbringing is the only thing that matters as far as your moral compass goes, they are stealing your destiny, whether they know it or they don't, because it's more than that. It's your life experiences, it's your education, your knowledge, and the self-reflection, which no one else can do for you but you. No one can do self-reflection for you. And no one can tell you what to think and how to manage that self-reflection as far as your upbringing, life experiences, education, and knowledge goes. That's an individual thing. And either people will respect that or they won't. And that's not really your problem. But what becomes your problem is if you are abandoning your life experiences, education, knowledge, and your self-reflection, which are all the other parts of stepping into your purpose, and you're only going to go by upbringing and what the institution tells you that you should do, it's very easy for you to fall short of your own destiny and purpose. All right, I think I've said enough. Go think about that, and we will chat in the next one.